Good evening, Kenya. It's 9 p.m. and you're right in time for our broadcast tonight. It's also Tuesday and Sidebar is lined up for you straight after the news because right here on NTV News, facts come first. The reigning hashtag for tonight is Cartel Country. Join the conversation. We have all the stories making headlines both nationally and internationally for you. But first, the headlines.
Tonight, members of parliament prepare to take on the Salaries and Remuneration Commission.
Kamukunji is intended to provide opportunity for briefing of members and discuss the progress of the ongoing disputes between the Salaries and Remuneration Commission.
The arrow in their quiver in their battle for the billions in allowances. Also tonight, tightening the noose on the necks of the graft lords.
We are going to be extremely vigilant to ensure that only clean money comes in.
How the central bank plans to hit at the heart of illicit financial flows. Plus, government prepares for drought.
The total resources that will be required will be almost 8 billion that will be deployed beginning July all the way to 31st of December.
As Kenyans experience suffering and hunger.
Kwetu Kilimaboko kuna njaa kubwa zaidi tena. Karibu watu wakufe.
How life is slowly drying up in some parts of the country. And also marking the end of the fasting month of Ramadan for Muslims around the world.
NTV Tonight with Ken Mijungu.
A very, very good evening and welcome to the broadcast. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Raphael Mbalu. And we begin from the National Assembly, where the Speaker, Justin Muturi, has convened a meeting on Thursday morning so that both members of the Senate and the National Assembly can be briefed on the status of the contentious house allowances. The meeting comes days after the court instructed the Parliamentary Service Commission, which Muturi, by the way, chairs, to stop the payments pending the determination of a suit filed by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. Thursday's meeting is anticipated to make bare whether the PAC will comply with the order or invoke the separation of powers principle to defend the continued payments.
The Kamukunji is intended to provide opportunity for briefing of members and discuss the progress of the ongoing disputes between the Salaries and Remuneration Commission and the Parliamentary Service Commission. And all the members are requested to attend and observe time.
Quorum, when it concerns their own welfare, rarely, if ever, presents a challenge. What remains to be seen is if the legislature will fall back on their tried and true excuse for failing to abide by court orders, and that is separation of powers. And whether the big bad press will once again find itself accused of actively seeking to paint the legislators as money-grabbing.
And in this regard, I also wish to, in a special way, thank the member for Harambee Town. I think, without knowing that, and already and deliberations and decided to have this Kamukunji and written to me requesting that a Kamukunji be held as soon as possible, and he has raised a number of pertinent issues.
True to script, the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, in running afoul of the legislators, is already facing threats to its budget. The Budget and Appropriations Committee declining to approve the Commission's budget for a new office space, travel and hiring of consultancy services. And with the Finance and Planning Committee threatening to sue the Commission for reportedly irregularly spending 99 million shillings to purchase new what they call top-of-the-range vehicles for commissioners. The MP's actions perceived as retaliatory with the purpose of crippling the Commission, given they came less than 24 hours after the Commission secured the court orders barring the further payout of the monthly 250,000 shillings per MP in a housing allowance. The Commission seeking court orders that would compel the PSC to pay back the 99.5 million in backdated housing allowances already paid out to the 416 MPs.
This payment will not only create inequity in remuneration and benefits for state officers, but will also lead to demands for house allowance by other state officers.
To claim that the taxpayer should await the outcome of Thursday's meeting with bated breath would be disingenuous. Anything that fails to follow the well-charted course MPs have followed in the past, where the monetary interests trump all else, would be nothing short of an upset.
Are you going to refund this money as the SRC is requiring of you?
Olive Barrows, NTV.
Well, let's see if they listen to the voice of reason on Thursday. Let's move on to the banking sector, which now says it's ready to help in ensuring seamless transition between the old and the new currency in the next 4 months. The Kenya Bankers Association says it has already put in place measures to flag any attempts at money laundering in the coming months. NTV's Brenda Wanga with that report.
At the heart of the demonetization of the 1,000 shillings note in the next 4 months is the country's banking sector. Those who are holding thousands of shillings in their homes have been asked to surrender their stash in exchange for the new notes, but there is a catch.
You are being asked to bring the notes back into the system. And now when you're bringing it back into the system, it has got to be vetted. You have got to identify that this was from genuine sources. So we'll ask you questions in terms of where did this money come from. And that's how we are saying that it's only the clean money that will come back into the system for circulation.
That single move, what the government hopes will be the silver bullet in the purge on graft. Aside from corruption, the removal of the notes from circulation is also aimed at drying the taps for those involved in money laundering.
The dirty money, you will find it difficult to actually be able to sneak it back into the system. And that's why the financial services sector, and especially the banking, are alert to all possible attempts of trying to sneak in these illicit funds during this time when the new notes are being replaced for the old notes.
Indeed, the CBK is counting on the very banks to help track down those who will not be able to account for the source of their money. The banks, SACCOs and microfinance institutions have been in the last few years undergoing training to enable them spot those suspect transactions.
What the bank is required to do in a situation like that is to raise suspicious transaction report through the established system. You see, so you are supposed to pick out what does not appear normal based on your knowledge of the customer. And some kind of transactions will be very normal for one customer, but very, very abnormal for another customer. And so on the ones that are normal, I'll raise no objection. But to the ones that are abnormal, I've got an obligation under the Process of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act to raise the necessary reports to the law enforcement authorities through the Financial Reporting Center to the law enforcement authorities, and then the necessary action is taken.
But even with the stringent measures in place, those keen on cleaning their ill-gotten money have been known to take desperate measures to ensure that they protect their illicit wealth. Some of these funds may find themselves into the construction, property and precious metals sector.
There will be a rush towards the heavy consumption. And indeed, this now will spur growth of the Kenyan economy through consumption, which is also very dangerous. Many of these people will rush into consuming lavishly, and this, in a way, will lead to a case in question where this money will be chasing very few goods and services within the economy.
Now that we have got a deadline, the temptation is to try to beat the deadline by bringing in the money into the system. And what you are saying is that for us, the banking sector, we are going to be extremely vigilant to ensure that only clean money comes in.
The phasing out of the 1,000 shillings note comes soon after a task force was formed to formulate policies to fight money laundering and illicit money flows. The task force is expected to give its report in 2 years' time. But before that, they're trying to curb the practice will already have left the station. Brenda Wanga, NTV.
Now, the fate of Kenya's new generation currency notes now lies with the bench of judges to be set up by the Chief Justice David Maraga after the High Court declined to adjudicate the matter, arguing that the petitions filed against the rollout of the currency raised weighty concerns, even as the Central Bank of Kenya continued to defend the constitutionality of the rollout amid sustained heavy debate over the implementation of the new currency rollout. We are working on that story for you. As soon as we have it, you will have it too. Now, from salt bars to banknotes, the form of trade and exchange in the country has come a long way. This is a step back into time to retrace the evolution of the currency and exchange through the years, and a story of change as told by NTV's Nuru Abdulaziz.
The currency in Kenya has had major developments since the 19th century to date. There was need to introduce a means of paying for goods and services to replace earlier modes of exchange such as cowrie shells, ostrich eggshell beads and the bulky salt slabs. And this is what led to the adoption of the first real currency to be used in East Africa, the Maria Theresa Thela coin, also called the trade coin, which was introduced along the Kenyan coast between 1800 and 1850.
After the Maria Theresa Thela, the rupee was also introduced in East Africa. There were two kinds of rupee. There was a Mombasa coin, Mombasa rupee, and the British Indian rupee. And these ones came because of the introduction of the Indians who came to build the East African Railway.
The East Africa and Uganda protectorate notes and coins were introduced by the British government between 1906 and 1919 and bore the image of the monarch.
From King George the Fourth, after that there was King Edward the Seventh, then King George the Fifth. During the Second World War, there was the introduction of the 1 shilling note because there was a shortage of metals, and most of the metals were used for making of armory. It was the only time that the 1 shilling note was introduced.
In 1952, Queen Elizabeth II took the throne and the East African Currency Board issued banknotes and coins with her portrait in 1953.
She had 3 different issues of coins. In the second issue, there was introduction of more signatures in the coin because the British wanted locals who were part of the East African Currency Board to be signatories within those coins.
After Kenya got her independence, new currency was introduced in 1964 without the image of the British monarch to reflect Kenya's independent status.
The notes were called the Lake Victoria issue because Lake Victoria was the territory that was shared amongst the 3 East African countries. There was an image of a doe on Lake Victoria on the notes, and on the coins were called the Uhuru coins. They also did not bear any image on them.
The country's founding president was the first to have his portrait in local currency issued between 1966 and 1978 under the newly established Central Bank of Kenya. In 1973, a 5 shilling coin with 9 sides termed as Kona Tisa was issued to mark 10 years of independence. In 1978, former President Daniel Toroitich Moi ascended to office as the second president of the Republic of Kenya.
He introduced his own issue of coins bearing his image, and there were 3 issues of coins. So the largest denomination that he introduced was a 1,000 shilling note, and the smallest denomination was a 5 cents note.
In October 1985, a new 7-sided coin, Kona Saba, was introduced to gradually replace the 5 shilling note. During former President Mwai Kibaki's tenure, only one coin that featured his portrait was minted to mark the 40th anniversary of the country's independence. After some time, all the notes and coins were changed to bear the image of the country's first president. In December 2011, the Central Bank of Kenya launched the new generation coins following the promulgation of the new Constitution of Kenya 2010. According to the Constitution, notes and coins issued by the Central Bank of Kenya may bear images that depict or symbolize Kenya as an aspect of Kenya, but shall not bear the portrait of any individual. During this year's Madaraka Day celebrations, the central bank unveiled the new generation 1,000 shillings note and announced that the old one will be rendered obsolete starting the 1st of October. Nuru Abdulaziz, NTV.
Very interesting perspective from Nuru Abdulaziz. But on Sidebar tonight, we'll also be telling you the advent of the 200 shilling note and the 500 shilling note. And of course, we'll tell you also about the return of the Kenyatta currencies That's on sidebar. But let's move ahead now and talk about the other issues that we're covering up for you. A National Police reservist and a suspected Al-Shabaab militant were last night killed during a security operation at the Fino area within Mandera Sub-East County. There was heavy gunfire between the Kenya Defence Forces and the militants some 40 kilometers from Mandera town along the Somalia border. Now, the militants fled to Somalia after they were overpowered by the Kenya security forces, who had been informed about the terrorists by the members of the public. The Al-Shabaab fighters had been spotted in the area for the past 2 days on an unknown mission. And the government has set aside 8 billion shillings to alleviate the effects of the prolonged drought affecting more than 10 counties. Devolution Cabinet Secretary Eugene Wamalwa says the government is aware of a food shortage despite the onset of the delayed long rains. The government today received 200,000 bags of rice from China to help avert hunger in the counties caused by drought.
The so-called long rain season from March to May may have fallen far below the long-term average, according to the Meteorological Department. Although the rains might have been felt in most parts of the country, the effects of drought will continue to be felt in the affected areas for a long time to come. The country is likely to suffer from worsening food shortages and water scarcity. Speaking at the inland container depot in Embakasi after witnessing the offloading of the first consignment of rice shipped from China, Devolution Cabinet Secretary Eugene Wamalwa said the government has set aside 8 billion shillings towards various drought mitigation interventions.
Ni mpango utakaodumu hadi mwishoni mwa mwaka kuhakikisha kuna chakula cha kutosha na maji ya kutosha, na vile tuna mpango pia kwa Wizara ya Kilimo na Mifugo kushughulikia pia mifugo haswa katika jamii zetu za wafugaji.
The CS has also urged governors to set aside 2% of their total budgets for emergencies to cushion against droughts and floods.
Vile tunatenga pesa kama serikali kuu, serikali za kaunti vile tunahimiza watenge pesa hizo na waweze pia kuweka mpango wa kwanza as our first line of defense kuhakikisha wanashughulikia wakazi wa kaunti zao.
China has donated over 200,000 bags of rice to help tackle food insecurity. The first consignment of 10,000 bags, which arrived last week, will be distributed to the most affected counties.
Mchele huu utaenda kwa kaunti karibu 17. Zile 13 ambazo zimeathirika na kaunti zingine ambazo zina ndugu zetu na dada zetu Waislamu wengi watapokea mchele huu.
Elsewhere, residents of Kilimambogo, Thika East are calling on the government to intervene and distribute relief food to help avert hunger. The residents claim the crops have dried up while others have been destroyed by wild animals living in the nearby park.
Kwetu Kilimambogo kuna njaa kubwa, zaidi tena. Karibu watu wakufe kwa sababu hawana mahali ya kulima.
Na tunatarajia tukiendelea kumonitor the situation vile iko, hivi karibuni tutapata chakula ya msaada.
Thika East Deputy County Commissioner Thomas Sankei said the situation is dire and that he has already alerted concerned authorities.
Well, let's take you back to money matters. The fate of Kenya's new generation currency note now lies with the bench of judges to be set up by the Chief Justice David Maraga after the High Court declined to adjudicate the matter, arguing that the petition filed against the rollout of the currency raised weighty concerns. Even as the Central Bank of Kenya continues to defend the constitutionality of the rollout amid sustained heavy debate over the implementation of the new currency rollout.
The controversy surrounding the rollout of Kenya's new generation currency notes keeps growing day by day. While the Central Bank of Kenya maintains the rollout is in accordance with the law, two petitions challenging various aspects of the rollout have been accorded even more prominence in the corridors of justice.
The case came up today and were before the Honorable Justice Korir, who looked at the case, certified it urgent, and on his own motion declared that he also certified it as raising a substantial question of law. Had the file to the Chief Justice to empanel a bench of 3 or 5 judges to hear the petition.
Some of the concerns raised in the two petitions by activist Okia Omtata and Iala Member of Parliament Simon Mbogwa include lack of public participation in the design of the new notes and the inclusion of a picture of a statue of Kenya's first President Mzee Jomo Kenyatta in the currency. These concerns have not only sharply divided members of the public, but also the opposition.
It was not proper to have the portrait of the first president on our notes, but that is something that we have to balance with considerations, because these notes have been printed. It is not correct to say that the party has called for a recall of those notes.
Meanwhile, the Central Bank of Kenya has stood its ground regarding the matter, maintaining that it is legally mandated to roll out the new currency and that it followed due process in what may end up costing the Kenyan taxpayer up to 15 billion shillings.
All those concerns that have been raised by others about that we didn't follow X or Y or inconsistent to a particular article or section, we think that that is not the case.
Kenya is replacing its old currency with a new generation tenders in compliance with the 2010 constitution, which prohibits the use of the portrait of an individual in the country's currency. Only the 217.6 million 1,000 shilling notes, which account for about 80% of the 261 billion shillings worth of notes currently in circulation, have to be withdrawn by October 1st this year in a move aimed at fighting illicit financial flows and counterfeits. Victor Kiprop, NTV.
All right, away from the money matters, the Institute of Engineers of Kenya are urging the owner of the Mallik Heights building to launch a forensic investigation into the structural integrity of the building following last night's fire. Explosions were allegedly heard as a building that hosts a car bazaar, restaurant and office buildings went up in flames, destroying millions worth of property, as Anita Nkonge now reports.
Less than 24 hours since a fire broke out here at Mallik Heights, and in the light of day, the full extent of the damage can be seen. What were once shiny and glimmering windows darkened by smoke and soot from last night's fire. Curious onlookers gathered as police, though tight-lipped, guarded and inspected the building. Some of those who worked in the building, however, also came to see if they could pick up their valuables. Though the structure seemed intact, engineers from the Institute of Engineers of Kenya have questioned the structural integrity and are now urging the owner to launch a forensic investigation to find out the full extent of the damage done.
Even if the building is standing now, we don't know the total effect of the fire that there was. So what we want to propose to the owner, what we have proposed to the owner is to allow forensic investigations to be done.
They also called out the handling of the fire on Monday night, claiming that the construction of the road slowed down the authorities' immediate access to the building.
We think the situation could have been managed a little bit easier if the interference from the road construction would not have been there. When the building is under occupation, there should be systems that should be put in place to ensure that the users get free access to them.
Though it is still not clear what may have caused the fire, a resident and worker in the building claims to have heard an explosion before the fire broke out.
Nikasikia kitu kama boom. Umeona? Sasa kule kutoka nje nikaona gari moja inawaka moto.
The extent of the damage done inside the building is also yet to be established, though it is believed it could run into millions. About 80 to 100 luxury cars parked at the car bazaar were destroyed in the fire.
Around 80 to 100, and they were all 4x4 brand new cars, Land Cruisers and Prados. They're all damaged, yeah. There's nothing to be left.
Police have launched an investigation into the cause of the fire, but are yet to make a statement. Anita Nkonge, NTV.
Well, 20 minutes past 9 p.m. Time now for our first break right here on NTV Tonight. But coming up, the shocking details of why a mother put her child in a pot of boiling water. And we're back with NTV Tonight. My co-pilot tonight is Raphael Mbalu. Lamu Senator Anwar Ole Tiptip is currently at a hospital nursing head injuries after he was attacked on Saturday night outside a nightclub in Nairobi's Kasarani area. According to the reports made to the police, where the police have arrested 6 people, they say that the people caused grievous harm on the senator. Now, the reports have it that the senator was at a club behind Safari Park Hotel, and it's after his stint at that pub that he was attacked in a company of a business lady in Nairobi. Police sources say the suspect will be presented in court on Thursday after the investigations on the same is complete. A 1.5-year-old child has died after being thrown into boiling water by a herbalist in an attempt to cure the child of cerebral palsy. The herbalist is in police custody as investigations continue. Now, this and more stories in our Bizarre Stories Wrap tonight.
Police have arrested a 22-year-old herbalist, Millicent Akinyi, in Tuan, Kitale town for killing a 1.5-year-old child. It is reported that the child had cerebral palsy and the mother took him to the herbalist to seek treatment. In an attempt to heal the child, the herbalist boiled water, added salt and some herbal medicine, and thereafter dipped the child into the boiling water. The child was rushed to hospital but eventually succumbed to the burns. In Kakamega, a man killed his wife and later committed suicide in Mawetatu area after he suspected his wife of having an affair. The man, Noah Nyangala, is said to have attacked his wife Metrin Nanjala with a panga in a confrontation, killing her on the spot. Authorities have condemned the incident and asked those in marriages to resolve conflicts amicably. Still in Kakamega, Mary Natembea, a Namarambi village resident, is fighting for her life in Lugulu Mission Hospital after she was attacked by her husband. The two had a disagreement after the woman came back home from a burial. It is reported that the husband had forbidden the wife to spend the night at the vigil, but she did not heed to his orders, thereafter chopping off the wife's hand with a machete. It took the help of neighbors who came to her rescue and rushed her to a hospital. The police have begun a manhunt for the suspect and are calling on the public to help with any information. Helen Aura, NTV.
Now, depression and suicide rates are on the rise in the country. In your copy of tomorrow's Daily Nation, we focus on suicide among the youth, why it's on the rise, and what is fueling it. Read the candid interview of a man who attempted suicide and a psychologist who runs Befrienders Kenya, an organization that offers free counseling for suicidal people and advice on when to seek help before one is pushed to the brink. Befrienders Kenya website receives about 1,000 visits every single day. For this and more, don't miss your copy of the Daily Nation tomorrow. Controversy over the sighting of the moon has once again come into play as a section of Muslims marked Eid today, despite the announcement by the Chief Qadi to the contrary. Now, Chief Qadi Ahmed Moldar had yesterday declared Wednesday as the end of Eid.
Mawasiliano tumefanya, lakini tumeshindwa kupata habari yoyote ya kuonekana mwezi. Kwa hivyo tunawatangazia Waislamu na Wakenya wote kwa jumla kwa kesho inshallah itakuwa ni tarehe 30 ya Ramadhani.
It was the pronouncement by the Chief Qadi on Monday on the weight of the sighting of the moon, a statement that seems to have been ignored by a number of Muslims who joined other countries globally to mark Eid celebrations today. In Nairobi, Muslim faithful gathered at Jamia Mosque for Eid-ul-Fitr prayers. The controversy over moon sighting was highlighted.
Hapa Kenya kuna maulama wengi sana, mimi nafikiri katika East Africa, Kenya ndio kwa watu wamesoma wengi zaidi. Lakini yataka wakae chini na wazungumze masala haya.
With a resounding call for tolerance, the faithful can now enjoy meals at their homes and restaurants.
Na tofauti hii si ya jana wala juzi, ni tofauti ilikuwepo kutoka jadi na majadi. Mwezi umeonekana nchi kadhaa ikiwemo nchi ya Saudia wakitangaza kuwa leo itakuwa ni siku ya Eid, na sisi zaidi watafuata pale popote mwezi ukionekana.
Eid prayers and celebrations were also marked in Mombasa at the Tononoka grounds, as well as in Eldoret, Mandera and Garissa. In Garissa, religious leaders used the opportunity to lament discrimination against some of the residents in acquisition of land, title deeds, and other government-issued documents.
You have vetted them once when they were getting the ID and the birth certificate. Why should people be vetted again when you are looking for a passport? This is unfair, and the government should look into those issues.
Faithfuls in Eldoret also joined in the celebrations to mark the end of the holy month of Ramadan. Tomorrow, the Chief Qadi is expected to lead other Muslims who are still observing the last day of Ramadan in Eid celebrations. Eid is marked each year to mark the end of the fasting, and it is one of the two major holidays in the Islamic calendar.
All right, here's something to chew on as we take another short break. Your ugali could become more expensive in the course of the month. Details of this and other stories coming up on Business Next with Dan Mijungu.
Oh, you
Good evening and welcome to NTV Business. My name is Dan Mijungu. The National Treasury has officially set the Thursday of the 13th of this month as the date for the reading of the national budget for the 2019-2020 financial year. This year's budget comes against a backdrop of the surging national debt that has financial experts concerned that Kenya may be edging towards a debt trap. It also comes at a time when the 6.3% economic growth rate registered last year is being questioned given the tough economic environment facing business enterprises. A number of companies have laid off staff as a way of cutting on costs, and many small and medium enterprises are struggling. Will CS Henry Rotich resort to providing a stimulus package for the economy, or will he propose a reduction in the corporate tax level to provide funds for reinvestment by firms? We get to know next Thursday. The Central Bank of Kenya has endorsed a proposed takeover of the National Bank of Kenya by the KCB Group, arguing that it is the only viable option available to save the struggling bank. KCB's shareholders and NBK's majority shareholders have already approved the transaction in which 10 ordinary shares of NBK would be swapped for 1 ordinary share of KCB in a deal that is valued at about 6 billion shillings.
The resolution of NBK is urgent. NBK is in a position where you can say that it is not only urgent, but if there was a misstep, it would be significant to the financial sector. 650,000 customers. So the implications of this would be significant if it's not taken care of urgently. At this point, we don't see any other option on the table. And as I said, the shareholders, we've been with them for quite some time, and they haven't brought to the table any other viable option. And therefore, from our perspective, in principle, we can support this.
Now, something not too tasty to chew on. Your ugali is expected to be more expensive in the course of this month. The price of maize meal or unga ugali is expected to go up as a result of what has been described by experts as inefficiencies on the government's part, leading to a shortfall in stocks available for sale. Further, farmers are demanding higher prices from millers, which they say is only sensible business-wise, as the economy has hit them hard. However, Lilian Kerry reports that some experts have dismissed the claims of hoarding by farmers and put the responsibility at the government's doorstep.
At the beginning of the year, a 2-kilogram packet of maize flour was retailing at 85 shillings. The same is currently going for about 120 shillings on the shelves. And experts say the price of the commodity is set to continue increasing. The grain's coming price goes against the grain of Mwananchi's hopes and expectations. With farmers selling to millers at higher prices alongside diminishing stocks, the cost will be transferred to consumers by increasing retail prices. This is according to the Cereal Millers Association chairman, Mohammed Islam. The supply to millers is also constrained because farmers are demanding higher prices.
Tuko na mahindi lakini bei ndio inatusumbua kidogo. Fadhali saizi kwa wakulima tushaga mahindi tuweke kaa chakula ya ng'ombe juu chakula pia zinapanda na inatokana na mahindi.
Mbolea na mbegu imeenda juu.
The Tegemeo Institute of Agricultural Policy says that the country's hope for good supply of the staple food is pegged on the harvest from the North Rift in mid-July. This means that if the harvest is poor, the country will be in the red. Speaking to NTV on phone, Dr. Timothy Njagi, a researcher with Tegemeo Institute, poured cold water on claims that farmers are hoarding maize. He says the market inefficiencies are as a result of the ongoing distribution challenges. He further argues that it is illogical for farmers to be hoarding maize when they know that the North Rift will be harvesting in July and thus increase supply of the commodity, which will in turn bring down prices. Njagi says that the government needs to come up with a measure to monitor the quantity harvested in order to determine deficit. Some maize meal and animal feeds manufacturers accuse the National Cereals and Produce Board of holding their more than 1 billion shillings worth of maize, for which they paid 3 weeks ago, but the grain is yet to be released to them.
We can say with certainty that our flour is going to be out of the shelves in the next couple of days if the maize is not released immediately to the millers.
Millers say that the more the government holds on to the maize, the more it risks being unfit for human or livestock consumption. Lilian Kiarie, NTV.
Now we go to matters of aviation, and Kenya Airways, as many know, is in the dumps financially. However, it's not on its own in the struggle to keep its numbers high. It's in the company of the industry as a whole. The global aviation industry is projected to make $28 billion in after-tax profit this year, which is 6.7% lower than the estimated $30 billion. Alex Mwangi now looks at the state of aviation in the just concluded International Air Transport Association's annual general meeting, which also tackled the matter of safety of the Boeing 737 MAX aircraft.
The aviation industry globally employs 2.7 million people directly and upwards of 10 million indirectly. The industry's profit margins are thinning, and presently it needs to navigate the rapidly shifting geopolitics which are currently chipping away at its bottom line.
Unfortunately, creeping protectionist or isolationist political agendas are on the rise, and they threaten to compromise For aviation to be a catalyst of prosperity, borders must be open to people and to trade.
In 2019, airlines are projected to make a combined profit of $28 billion or about 2.8 trillion shillings, which translates to $6 or 600 shillings per passenger.
Returns will still exceed the cost of capital, but only just. And the industry's 3.2% net margin is modest and fragile compared to the margins of 20% or more that Apple and Google regularly enjoy. Looking to the future, the outlook is optimistic. Demand is forecast to double over the next 2 decades.
Kenya Airways Chief Executive Sebastian Mikosh, who is set to exit the airline at the end of the year, also traveled to Seoul, South Korea to attend the year's premier aviation event.
I think that this airline industry, we are far behind where we should be. We have a lot of data, but we have no idea what to do with them, and particularly how to transfer it to the passenger. So what's the benefit that the passenger could see from us having all this data available?
The International Air Transport Association's chief executive tackled head-on the matter of the safety of Boeing 737 MAX aircraft, 2 of which crashed in the space of 5 months, killing 346 people.
But the consequences of this strategy go far beyond the technical. Trust in the certification system has been damaged. Everyone must be confident that processes are sufficiently thorough not to warrant duplicative and redundant examinations, jurisdiction by jurisdiction.
Currently, aviation contributes to 15 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals and has placed the reduction of carbon emissions as one of its top priorities. Alex Mwangi, NTV.
Staying in the skies, and Kenya Airways has suspended flights to and from Khartoum, including the 2 that were set for tonight. This, the firm says, is due to the uncertain situation at Khartoum International Airport in light of the tension and calls for civil disobedience. Kenya's national carrier says it is monitoring the situation and will advise when normal operations resume. That's it for business. My name is Dan Mwangi, but coming up after the break, tensions spill over into violence and death. What's going on in Sudan?
a quick look at the news making headlines around the world, and we start in the neighboring country of Sudan, where the protest movement called for total civil disobedience and rejected the military ruler's election plan after more than 35 people were killed by security forces, what demonstrators called a bloody massacre. Now, tension remained high across Khartoum, with heavy deployment of armed members of the paramilitary rapid support forces in various parts of the capital. Images released by the Sudanese Doctors Committee show officers at the entrance of the emergency service of the Royal Care Hospital in Khartoum beating a doctor with batons. Now, the Sudanese Professionals Association, which spearheaded the protest against Bashir, rejected calls for a snap election. And elsewhere, about 3,000 Malawian opposition supporters marched through the capital Lilongwe to protest alleged fraud in last month's election that saw Peter Mutharika return as president. The march, dubbed "For Malawi to Rise, Mutharika Must Fall," attracted thousands of protesters, bringing central Lilongwe to a standstill. Now, backers of the opposition Malawian Congress Party alleged their leader, Lazarus Chakwera, was robbed of his victory in the May 21st election. It was the first street demonstration since the results were announced more than a week ago. And finally, U.S. President Donald Trump said the U.S. and the United Kingdom have the greatest alliance the world has ever known. Trump's UK visit comes at a chaotic time for Britain, with Theresa May due to step down as Prime Minister. Trump has already weighed in by urging Britain to walk away from the European Union without an agreement, suggesting that Brexit backing former Foreign Minister Boris Johnson will be an excellent choice to head the government and get it done.
We're going to take two questions from the UK media.
And sports is up next with Sean Karavelis. Stay with us.
Take your hustle to the next level. Every day, 'cause
will link up with Harambee Stars in France tomorrow morning after the resolving of the push and pull regarding his services between the Football Kenya Federation and Japanese league side Kashiwa Reysol. The Japanese second-tier club originally was only willing to release Olunga after Sunday's league match. This would have meant that the Harambee Stars lead striker would miss Kenya's international friendly against Madagascar in Paris on Friday, much to the anger of coach Sebastien Mignet. It is 17 days to go before the kick-off the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations in Egypt, where Kenya, who are making a return after 15 years, will face Senegal, Algeria and Tanzania. The national men's volleyball team's hopes of qualifying for the 2019 Africa Games, slated for September in Morocco are over. This follows a 3-0 whitewash at the hands of Paul Bitok-led Rwanda in the Zone 5 qualifiers. Ida Waringa caught the action at Kasarani and brings us the highlights.
The national men's volleyball team that has for long lived in the shadows of their female counterparts failed to rise to the occasion on day 2 of the Zone 5 Africa Games qualifiers. Kenya had to battle to see off Uganda 3-2 in the first game, but playing Rwanda, coached by veteran Kenyan coach Paul Bitok, proved to be a different ball game. Despite leading at the technical timeouts in both the first and second sets, Kenya could not see off the games with Rwanda's technical ability, helping them stage a comeback to win 26-24 in the first and then 25-23 in the second. A strong Rwandese serve would perhaps appropriately seal the deal in the end, as Kenya's amateur mistakes cost them, with Rwanda winning the third set 26-24 to wrap up the game.
It was easy for me, but I'm very sorry for Kenya because this is my country. I'm always feeling bad when I meet with them because I am winning against my country.
Kenya, currently on 2 points, can at best finish in second, and that will be if they beat Egypt in the final game, which Kenyan coach Moses Epoloto admits will be a tall order.
This is a young team. They have so many years to play, and I think they still have a chance. If they fail in AAG, we have a couple of nations that can still go for the World Championship.
Kenya Volleyball Federation's David Lungaho dismissed claims of the women's game in the country being ahead of the men's. The Malkia strikers topped their qualifiers to sail a spot to Morocco, where they will get a chance to defend their title.
So the competition is very hard. That's why our men are struggling to play against top teams. But I don't think it's a question of ladies doing better than the men.
In the day's other result, Egypt beat Uganda 3-1. The North Africans are top with 6 points and will only need 1 point against Kenya to win the Zone 5 qualifiers. The qualifiers conclude Wednesday with Uganda serving off against Rwanda at 2 p.m. and Kenya playing Egypt at 4 p.m.
Now, the national sevens rugby team has been given a new lease of life after it dramatically survived a relegation. The focus will now be on the Kenya Rugby Union as well as the government to fix the problems facing Shujaa and prevent a repeat of what proved to be a horror season both on and off the pitch. The national sevens rugby team saved the best for last as they produced the goods when it mattered to save themselves from relegation from the World Rugby Series.
After the London tour, it's when the reality really checked in, because that's the time that we only managed to get 1 point. Going for Paris, we knew we had to go all out. They only got lucky at some point and things went our way and we got the results that we wanted.
At the Paris Sevens, Shujaa reached the main cup quarterfinals for the first time in 10 legs of the series, and coupled with results going their way, managed to garner 10 points and finish the season 13th overall with 37 points.
Msimu umekuwa mgumu, lakini Mungu ametuwezesha kufaulu. Tumeweza kucheza vyema. Kwanza tukiwa France, tumecheza vyema na sasa hivi tumebaki katika core status za team za World Sevens.
In a show of the effort put in by the team, former captain Andrew Omonde was named in the Paris Sevens Dream Team, while Bush Mwale and young Johnston Olindi topped the Paris Sevens DHL performance tracker.
I will just put it because it was a hard work it was a collective work from the team, because we put on the shift. We knew what we wanted to achieve on that tournament and we went all out and we just backed ourselves and got the results.
After a torrid season, what are the lessons picked by coach Paul Murunga?
Pia tuweze kufanya maandalizi mapema na pia tunahitaji wadhamini wakuja watusaidie kwa sababu maandalizi pia yanaenda sambamba na pesa.
Going forward, there are reports that the Kenya Rugby Union is seeking to make changes in the coaching unit, which will be in keeping with the KRU tradition of a new coach every year for the last 6 seasons. With the team giving up leads in the second half in the main cup quarterfinals and in the fifth place semi, there is a need to work on the strength and conditioning of the players, and that means a coherent pre-season for the team.
Sports does not wait for you. The World Rugby Sevens circuit doesn't wait for you. So if the Dubai Sevens is at the end of November, and you need to start training at the beginning of October, and you need to have condition and all that has to go on, whether you have resources or not.
That means the government has to keep its promise of funding the team as needed.
That as we move forward, this become things of the past, yeah? And we have a situation that will be sustainable, that will be seamless, that hopefully will be trouble-free.
Failing to plan, it is said, is planning to fail. Kenya Sevens has been given a second chance in as far as its core status is concerned, and the onus is now on the government and the Kenya Rugby Union to ensure the torture of the threat of relegation is never relived. Now, there will be new champions unveiled when the national finals of the Chapadimba na Safaricom go down in mid-June, and that's at the Kenora Stadium in Meru County. This is after reigning champions Kapenguria Heroes and Plateau Queens were eliminated in the early stages of the tournament. 8 boys teams and 7 girls teams from 8 regions will take part in the national finals of the tournament that seeks to nurture football talent across the country. From the inaugural season, over 15 young players joined the Kenyan Premier League and the National Super League. This year, an all-star team was selected from the 8 regional finals and attended a training camp in Spain, during which they played against local youth sides.
I'm particularly delighted for the great opportunities the tournament has brought to our youth. This is not a football tournament. It's a lifeline for these young men and women in the local villages of Kenya, where I think most of us come from.
The Federation, we'll have to say thank you to Safaricom for keeping the promise, for keeping the dreams of players alive.
In tennis, Rafael Nadal continued his march towards a record-extending 12th French Open title by sweeping past Kei Nishikori 6-1, 6-1, 6-3 to book his place in the semi-finals. The second seed, who now has a 91-2 win-loss record, clay court That's the latest sports news. Have a good evening.
Right, thank you very much for watching NTV Tonight. My name is Ken Mijungu, but it's Tuesday, and as always, Tuesday is Sidebar. So tonight, we want to talk about money matters and about the state of the nation. And my guests are already here. I have Senator Mwaura, I have Member of Parliament for Homa Bay, and of course I have Mheshimiwa Rigathi, and I have advocate here, James Mamboleo, to help us with the discussion. We're not only discussing money matters, but also the state of the nation. So stay with us. We're back in a moment.